Hi guys, sorry about that. Had someone knock at the door, so I had to cut off a bit quick. Hopefully you could hear me on the last one as the dog started barking. We're talking about what are spirits, what are they here for, who are they, what do they want, and can they hurt me? We've just been talking about poltergeist, and as I've just explained, that to me, poltergeist is no different to I think that just human beings, when you look at human beings, you've got all different walks of life. You've got those that are nice, those that are nasty, those that can cause trouble. I just think that if you've got a mischievous person on this side, once they pass over, why would they change? Um, we've also got entities. This is paranormal activity is associated with beings that have never been human at any time. Um, some call them angels, some say demonic. Now, for me, I'm just learning about the Bible. I want to learn about the ghosts. I want to learn about spirit. I want to learn about angels. I want to learn about archangels. And I also want to know about the devil. Now, they say that entities that are here that have basically never been full-bodied. For me, how I would explain that is probably spirits that, before the time, well, of the time of God, there were spirits that were sent that came down to earth, that basically caused a lot of mischief. Me personally, myself, again, I don't see spirit like that. I personally myself see spirit as, just the same as they were in this life over in that life. Um, do I believe in entities of beings that are here that have never been human? I don't know. I can't answer that. Like, do you know what I mean? No one, I think, can answer a lot of questions when it comes to the spiritual world. I can only give my personal experience. I have had like encounters with basically talking to spirits of all different wakes of life, and I've never personally had a spirit that's come through and said that they haven't had some purpose in their life before becoming a spirit. That doesn't say that it doesn't exist, it just means I haven't experienced it personally myself. um, we also have what's called a portal haunting, vortex. Now, this I have experienced, and this is quite unique. You get it mainly on sacred grounds, but you get what's called portholes. I've been in a friend's house before now where she was getting a lot of activity. Her daughter kept getting scratches. There was a lot of other things that had gone on, other unexplained events. I got asked if I could actually go to the property and do some work there to see what I could find. On taking photographs of around the property, I found that a door that they had closed off a long, long time ago that had just recently been opened had actually, for some unknown reason, attracted a porthole. Um, Upon taking photographs of the door and around the door, there were thousands and thousands and thousands of orbs, um, all different colours, of all different sizes. And we noticed, when I got talking to the lady, she actually said that the activity had started since the door had been opened. Whether or not, I mean, there is talk about when there's decoration going on, when there's change going on, that it can wake up entities, it can wake up spirits. It could have quite easily have opened up a porthole just through the fact that, the work was done in the first place. Um, Advice was given to the lady, if she didn't want it, was to basically either board the door back up or to just speak to the spirits and explain that, like, they've all got to live there and just that they've got to learn to get on. If not, then there will be action taken by getting some sort of cleansing done where the spirits would be asked to leave and move on, or they could have the access to coming through. I do know of other activities where this house is that I think the door was actually left open, and I do know that there was a suicide within the houses a couple of doors down. Whether or not this was a representation of something coming through, I can't 100% say. As I said, I can't 100% say because of the fact that there's no scientific evidence. There's only evidence of what I've seen by my own doing and by my own eye. Um, I personally do believe that there is something that's not quite right with the street. It's very much adjacent to where I live, and there is a ley line that runs through it. Whether or not this actually opens a porthole as well, I don't know. I'm looking into ley lines at the moment and what their association with attracting spirits. You've also got types of hauntings and spirit visitations. What defines a haunting and visitation? Like snowflakes, no two hauntings or visitations are exactly the same. Most people associate a haunting visitation with an appearance of a full body apparition. In reality, the appearance of an apparition is rare. I personally can vouch for that, because I mean I've seen many and many of spirits. Um, but to be fair, it's not something I see every day, all day. Like, I can be sat there one minute just thinking about something, and all of a sudden a spirit will just pop up in front of me. I do actually see dark energies. This is something that I was quite scared of until quite recently, and I started looking up about conversations about the grey man. And what I've actually found out is that when the dark apparition shows up, it's actually a warning to just take careful measures, careful steps. I actually got assaulted not long back by my stepfather, and the day beforehand, in the morning of the incident, I had a young little boy stood in front of me. When reading up about the energy of a dark young boy, it states that something negative was coming, and it was actually sent to me to be aware. Now, before I started reading into it, I was quite scared of it. Like, why is this dark figure coming to me? Is it something dark? Is it something negative? Is it something trying to hurt me? What I've realised is I mean, these dark figures have been with me all my life. I've seen them all my life. I'm still here. I'm not dead. Nothing's hurt me. Nothing of any sort has hurt me, and that's because of the fact that I protect myself well. I make sure that I'm grounded. I make sure that all protection that is needed is done. um, Hauntings and visitations can occur at any time, not just at night, and can occur on a certain day, a certain time, or a certain anniversary. Hauntings and visitations can happen during ideal paranormal weather conditions, or for no reason whatsoever. So like, you might just see them because of the fact that they just want to pop in and say hello. They may pop in to give you a message of some sort. I've had people that have come to me saying they've seen visions of things like before incidents have happened. So sometimes things are sent to us as messages, as signs to be aware of stuff. Some things are just sent just because of the fact they can. I mean, we, in our waking life, in our real bodies, like, if you look at how our path is every day on our own waking life, and then look at it as in a spiritual sense, for me, the only thing that's changed is the fact that they no longer have a body, but the actual spirit itself just lives life the way that we do. And we just pop in every now and then to a friend's house, or we pop in the pub, or pop to the cinema, or we pop to the shop. So yeah, every now and then they may just pop in just for the sake that they can. Hauntings and visits usually involve most of our senses: sight, sound, smell and touch. So normally, like, if you see something, you may actually get a smell first, you might actually get a sign, you might actually get a sensation. So the sensation that someone stood behind you, or the feeling of uncomfortableness as if something's next to you. And then that might be when you see your sign. It may be a full-bodied apparition, it may just be lights, could be all sorts of different signs. Most common noises include footsteps and selected music, strange sounds, voices, knocking, giggling, crying, sounds you may recognise, smells you may recognise, seeing small lights, seeing mist, full-bodied apparitions, usually cold or hot spots, a touch, unexplained breezes, strange noises, radios, TVs turning on or off, flickering lights. When talking about someone, so if you're talking about someone that's in spirit, you may see this stuff, like, especially around where they are, and like especially whilst you're talking about them, and this is their clarification to you. This is them coming through to you to say, I'm listening, and yeah, I agree with you, or yeah, I'm listening, and yeah, I'm here. um it's quite nice when you actually get that, to be fair, like, but I find that when I get those, I have to be in a right deep meditative state. So like when you're like sort of staring into oblivion and not sure where you are, that's normally when you'll get your signs. um Lights turning on and off, like anything that can't be explained as something from this world. Example, pipes banging after being used, things blowing in the wind. Like, if you can't rationally say, oh, that happened because, like, the wind just blew it through the corridor, or that happened because someone sneezed, and like, if I if you can't explain it, then you go with the last message, and the last message is probably a sign. Um, a lot of reasons why spirits can be around. Let's go into that topic next. Unfinished business. A spirit may stay behind if there is unfinished business to attend to at the time of their death. I know for instance, when my sister-in-law passed away, unfortunately, her daughter had been left orphaned. Her father had passed away a few years beforehand. I actually saw my sister-in-law in a dream, and in the dream she had hold of her daughter, and she was stood back holding her, looking at me as if to say, I need to deal with this. Let me deal with this, and then I can come to you. Once I've sorted out what I need to, I'll then come and see you. It took about 7 years actually before she came through to me, and I know a lot about the family, obviously, because of being related to the family. And to be fair, I know that her daughter needed a lot of care and attention, and I do believe that she became her spirit guide, her protector, and her leader of where she went to and who she is now, because she's turned out to be a very fantastic girl. Another thing you'll get with spirits and why they may stay around is confusion. The spirit does not realise that they are dead. Now, I do know of a couple of people that have said to me that, like, people that have passed away. I remember a friend of mine whose husband passed in an operation. He'd gone in for a normal tooth distraction, like they were just meant to pull the tooth out, and unfortunately died on the table under anaesthetic, where they'd given him too much anaesthetic. Now, for days, she heard him as if he was literally in the room with her, walking around, banging, bashing, moving pictures. For a couple of days, she was pretty spun out by it until we got talking, and I said to her, I think it's your husband, and I think that, like, he went so quick that he didn't have time to just prepare and finish some unfinished business. So he's come back basically just to sort out some things and just to recognise him. Another reason why a spirit would stay around is to need to say their farewells. So, this would come into that same category that, they never got to say their goodbyes. So if they didn't get to say their goodbyes, it's important for them to come back and say their goodbyes. The thing is it's very important for us sometimes to actually hear their goodbyes as well, and also to acknowledge them. If a spirit isn't being heard, then they can't rest. As simple as. Sometimes, like, we need to accept, for whatever reason that their passing was, that they're passed. And for them to be able to be at peace, and for them to be able to rest and relax, we need to be able to be relaxed and rested. I have known of spirits that have stayed around for 10, 15 years with people until they basically came to terms with their passing. It was their passing that kept the spirit about, because the fact that they knew that the person living couldn't cope without them. So it was very important for the spirit and the person to have that communication. To be fair, if I hadn't come into their life, it probably wouldn't have ended as, wouldn't have come to a closure as much as it did as quick. It was only once I explained that, like, the spirit was actually waiting for them to be at peace with their passing, that the spirit could actually then physically pass over, and that they wouldn't pass until they knew that the person they'd left behind was safe. need to help a loved one. Now, if you've got a situation that someone's in crisis before someone passes, or if the spirit person knows that the person's going to be in crisis because of their passing, then they will automatically come back to help their loved ones get through whatever they need to do, whatever they need to sort out until everything's settled. And another reason that once everything's settled, then they can then pass. um for me, I find this a lot with spirit, that there are a lot of spirits that will stay around to support their loved ones during their mourning, because of the fact that they can't come to terms with their passing. Once the people come to terms with their passing, then the spirit that they're thinking of can then move over, cross over. So yeah, you do get a lot of spirits that basically come around to help us during our grief and our time of mourning. Another reason that spirits would stay around is fear of a judgment. If a person lived a life that they feel may jeopardize their entry into heaven, they are less likely to move on. It can be very difficult to convince the spirit to move on, facing the fear they will go to the underworld. I have been recognizing this a lot lately during doing some work with visuals, where I'm actually talking to some spirits. I've actually said to them that they need to accept that they need to believe in God, maybe, and maybe, if they've crossed because of a bad thing, then they may need to face that bad thing and apologize for it, keep repenting it. Maybe their fear of the fact that they think they're gonna go to hell. Maybe they haven't had a good life. Like, maybe there's something they've got to put right in their own mind and their own judgment for them to be able to feel at peace, to be able to pass over calmly and coolly and collectively. And this is one of my purposes, is to help spirit to cross over. And if there is a place that's limbo, then I don't want them to be stuck there. I'd hate the thought of that. Going back a few years ago, I actually tried to commit suicide. I succeeded and passed away, and I got brought back, and I saw a nun. And when talking to the nun, I said to her that I didn't care anymore, and I was quite happy to go. And what she'd said to me was, what if, I passed away, and what if I had to wait around until, all that suffering and pain had settled, and I had to face all that. And to be fair, that's one of the reasons that I'm still here, is because of the fact that that did always stay in my mind. What if there was a place that we had to stay if we did cause pain and suffering, and we had to watch that pain and suffering? I'd like to think that's not the case, and I've spoken to many of people that have passed through suicide, and personally I've found that they've passed over okay. There hasn't been any resentment. Obviously they've been apologetic to the family because of what they have left behind, but there's never been any discussion with any spirit saying that they're stuck or they're being punished for this. So please don't think for 1 minute that that they're being punished, because they're not. How I'm trying to explain it is that I feel that they've got to stay around to help those that are suffering. But then this is what comes into term in every spirit sense that I've spoken to you about so far, is that I feel that the spirits are actually here to help us, guide us, and if have to, get us through to the next chapter, help us come to terms with someone's passing, or mourning, or fear of letting go. Funnily enough, this is another one, that another reason that spirit might stay around is due to fear. The spirit may actually be afraid of the light, or afraid that their very existence will end once they enter the light, and that they will no longer exist in any dimension. This isn't something that I've actually asked spirit yet. It's something I'm going to ask them. But I can understand that, what if, for me to think that I would never be able to speak to my children again, or communicate with them, or for them to know that, if I was to have passed, that I'm there for them, and that I'm still there on a spiritual level. That fear, I could see, could stop me from wanting to move on if that's the case. And this is one of the things I'm happy to do, is I'm happy to speak to spirit, and I'm happy to help them to cross over if they need to. If there is some fear of, what they've left behind, I find that a lot of my readings that I do with spirit, that very quickly it's established that through the client and through spirit that I make it perfectly clear that the importance that it is that they both know that each other are around. I've not personally had any spirit that hasn't come through, so I don't feel that there is this boundary of, like, heaven and hell, and or some limbo or some in between. I think that there's two universes, and basically we're in one in the physical body, and when the physical body dies, the spirit just remains in the same dimension that we're in, just without the body. um I don't think that there's more to it than that, but this is something I'm still learning. There's no scientific evidence to prove different, so I can't say that it's for sure. I'm just giving my own personal experiences of what I see every day. And when I see spirit and feel spirit every day on a daily basis walking amongst us, as if I was walking down the shop and being amongst human, the physical body, it's no different to me to seeing spirit in the same sense that they're still very much around us the way that we are when we're in the physical body, but they're just without the physical body, and I can see them, which is fortunate for me. And they just, for me, because of the fact that I'm more advanced, I think that's why they come through a lot more to me and give me a lot more. Which, to be fair, is quite nice, because obviously I'm able to help other people communicate with them, and if there is some purpose or if there is something that's stopping them, then they've got perfect opportunity to come through and say their sorries and that. I've personally not had that. I always find that they're lovely angelic experiences, and that they do just want to reassure their loved ones they are around and they are supporting us. And for me, that's very much what it's about. You've got archangels that basically have a higher role, and I do believe that when people pass over, that the body does pass, but the spirit does stay, and it does become some guide for us. It does become like a teacher, a leader, someone that gives us direction. The more that we can tune in and listen to that direction, the better the experience that we have with spirit, that we know that they're still around. We also have what we call intelligent hauntings. Now, intelligent haunting can be unnerving to some, since the spirits can interact with the living. However, it is important to remember that these spirits were human beings once, like you and I. They had family, jobs, hopes, dreams, and concerns. Now, they typically maintain their personalities they had when they were alive. Kind, loving, warm people turn into kind and helpful spirits. This is what I've just been saying, that I feel very much that, like, when we cross over, that we just basically take on the role that we've got here, just in a different dimension, but on the same level. We also have what's called free spirits. Free spirits, this cannot be classified as a haunting, as all the visitations from spirit that have crossed into the light and returned to visit for a particular reason they can choose to visit to, help us get over their passing, help us during the time of crisis, help trapped spirits cross over into the light, celebrate special events during occasions such as weddings, family reunions, holidays, birthdays, other special events, assisting a loved one who is dying. So free spirits, for me, all spirits are on the same level, but this is what it's been classified as, what a free spirit is. When it says on the last bit there, to assist a loved one passing away, you'll normally find that when someone is passing, that they will say that they see family members that come and get them. This is another part of what I was just saying about, I feel that just because the body dies, it doesn't mean that the actual soul dies. So when someone comes to passing, there's always someone there to greet them, which also says to me that the reason that they're there are to be angels and guides and to help us so that we are at peace with crossing over. You also get what's classed as crisis apparitions. Now, I have had a situation with a crisis apparition, and crisis apparitions are actually our own souls from the living body. This is a completely different experience altogether. The crisis experience I had was basically a lad that I knew tried to take his own life. and he'd actually been thinking so much of his daughter before he passed that he was able to suppress a dark black handprint upon a baby grow that was on the radiator of the child in connection that he was thinking of. Now, what this is basically, it's our soul going out of our body whilst it's in time of crisis, whilst it's in time of need, and it's reaching out. Um, I've only ever seen this one case of it. I have had dreams of situations where I've been shown crisis situations. So I was shown my son getting knocked over, to which another lad actually got knocked over, and then my son 2 years later did get knocked over. Unfortunately, I didn't know about crisis apparitions then. I didn't know that we can actually physically see things with our soul and our mind before they happen. And now I'm more aware of it, I'm able to help certain situations. I've stopped a couple of suicides. I've actually helped a couple of people by recognising a crisis apparition before it actually happens. It's very unusual and very rare, but it does actually happen. I've had many of people that have said that they might not get the crisis apparition as in a physical being. They might just get the sense of feeling. So I don't want to go out in the car today. I feel that something's not right. That is a crisis apparition. That is a soul, or your own intuition being talked to and tuned into, being telling you that there's a crisis situation going to happen and that you should be really careful. Now, a couple of weeks ago, me, my son, and my daughter-in-law were involved in a car accident. Something already told me before it was going to happen that something was going to happen, to which I ended up being aware. I ended up staying back 2 cars. Because of this, the van that hit the car in front of us on the side actually veered off and headed straight for us head on. But because of the fact that I'd actually tuned into this crisis apparition and this sense of feeling, I was 10 steps ahead. So I was able to basically be aware of it heading towards us, and I ended up on the grass verge and it missed us. If I hadn't have been aware, there wouldn't have been nothing that we could have done. It would have hit the car in front of us, steered and smashed straight into the front of us, and we wouldn't be here now. I've actually had a dream where my daughter and I both had the same dream of her sitting in the front of the car. I was dazzled by light. I actually stopped and I saved myself getting hit by a van. My grandfather years earlier had actually been involved in a similar accident where he'd got dazzled by light, smashed into the back of a car, and ended up paralysed from the waist down because of it. So I do believe that this was a crisis apparition from my grandfather coming through to me and my daughter with the same dream, so that it would be more clarification, and it saved our lives. So these messages are sent to us for us to listen to, and this is what our process is at the moment, is tuning you in to picking up on these apparitions, on these senses, on these feelings, and trust in your instincts, trust in your intuition, trust what you're being told. And the more that you tune into it and the more you can trust yourself, the better that it will be for you. We've also got residual haunting. Residual haunting is the most common paranormal activity. The residual haunting is an energy from the past trapped in time. It's basically similar to recording that is played over and over again. Events in the past can leave an imprint that can be released in random or in specific times. Now, the best way for me to describe this would be probably a prison basically, that's had a prisoner. If you've had someone on a life sentence and they've been locked in the same cell, or they've been locked in the same environment for ages, when their body goes, there's probably a lot of anger, there's probably a lot of rage, a lot of hatred. That is enough to keep someone to keep haunting a body. But also as well, there's what's called the imprint. So it's like basically putting your hand on a window that's steamy, you would leave your handprint on there. If you was to take it away, every time that window heats up, you would see that handprint until you actually wiped it off or cleared it. This is the same sort of thing. This is also going back to psychometry, where if you've got objects that have got residual energies in them. So If you've had your grandmother wearing the same ring for 20, 30 years, her energy is going to be in that, because the fact that it's been worn for so long that the suppression of the soul has basically become part of that object. We've also got entity, angelic or demonic haunting. This is by far the rarest type of haunting. These entities were never a human form. One of the distinguishing characteristics that you are dealing with as an entity is an overwhelming sense of good or evil. It's highly recommended that you listen to your gut feeling on this one. So if you've just, say, moved into a house and you're doing decorating and that, this is more common to where you're more likely to find this. And this is because of the fact that you've got spirits and energies that are attached to the properties, to items that are in it. The minute you start moving them properties, I mean, if someone come into your house and, you know, they started moving your sofa, moving your furniture, moving your TV, you'd be like, what the bloody hell do you think you're doing? This is my house, this is my stuff, my shit, get out. What are you doing? And this is how spirit says it, like, do you know what I mean? You start meddling with their things and you start recreating their things, or you start changing their things, they're not going to be happy with it. Now, for me, when I moved into the house I'm in now, I've been here 18 years. I did have some entity that was attached to the property. It wasn't demonic at all, but it was very moody, I would say. And basically what I found out was that the person that a person had passed away. They'd obviously loved the house very much, and what I had to do was reassure the person that lived in the property before me, that was now a spirit and soul, was that I want to love the house and cherish the house as much as they do, and that we can either work together and they can support me on, like, you know, loving the house like they would, or I can just leave it and it'll go into disrepair, and, you know, what are they going to do then, like when it gets knocked down and it's not here no more, or if I've thrown the item away. Spirit do talk to you the same way as we would each other, like, do you know what I mean? So pretty much you just need to speak to them the same as you would any normal human being on this plane, but just in a physical, you know, in another sense of, you know, obviously you're talking to the soul. I would be careful doing this around the high street though, because you will get classed as mad if you start going around talking to yourself. You know, you need to be very realistic with this. You need to, you know, you need to be basically straight down the middle with this, of what is, you know, who you're talking to and what you're doing, and don't drive yourself mad. Don't think like you've got to be thinking about this all the time. You know, you just need to talk to them once, and normally it calms the situation down. If it doesn't, then just keep talking to them and it will. All right, we're at the end of this session. I hope what I've said to you has, you know, been to some use. It's very difficult to explain a lot of it because I'm still very much learning myself, and as I'm learning more, I will, like, you know, teach it to you. I will give it to you. To be fair, as I said, like, you know, you get all these different names to poltergeist, ghosts, spirits, and this, that, and the other. A lot of them I feel are very much film made up. You know, the spirits that are over there. We have archangels, we have angels, and we have our spirit guides, and we have our spirits. And as far as I'm concerned, that's what I've come in contact with. Yes, I have come in contact with dark energies, but I've ended up, like, you know, finding out that they've been there to protect me, not to hurt me. They've been signs of warnings to protect myself and protect those around me. It's up to you how you interpret what you see and what you feel. I personally don't go down the side of believing of anything of negative. Everything I see is positive. That doesn't say that it doesn't exist. It doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. I mean, I've lived in a flat before where a lot of strange stuff happened. I used to see a dark figure, but as I said, I'm still here. There's nothing ever happened to me on a negative basis that that I would feel that was, like, you know, from some poltergeist or anything like that. But yeah, take it easy, take it steady, be careful what you play with. Don't go playing with Ouija boards, tarot cards. If you're going to use things, do it on the angelic sense, and make sure that whenever you talk to spirit, you always give them the respect that they deserve, and you speak to them how you would like to be spoken to. I'm going to leave that with you. Thank you ever so much, and I hope this was helped you in some way. Thanks. Bye.